Hey everybody, this is Chris with the New to the Game podcast here along with Ben Schneider. Today we're going to be talking about mentors, coaches, leaders, a bunch of different names you can call them, but we're going to be talking about how to find a mentor for when you're new in business. This is a topic that me and Ben are pretty passionate about because both of us have worked with a lot of different coaches. We've had mentors, we've had leaders in different companies and groups we've been a part of. And Ben's going to talk about that sometimes these people find you, but usually you have to find them. So, what are your thoughts about this, Ben? I know this topic we could ramble on for a long time about, but what's the high level?
Yeah, man. Yeah, mentors are huge. I remember when I first started my company and I was like stepping into it. I always had, when I was in high school and stuff, like I heard the word of mentor, and I didn't really have any specific mentor figures in my life. I mean, I had football coaches and stuff like that I looked up to. But it wasn't really until I really got into the business sphere that I started to recognize more about what a mentor really was. I think there was often this vision of like a mentor was a old man on a bench that you could like go and hang out with, and they would give you a ton of great free advice, and you would just sit there and just soak it all in, and you could bring all your questions to them. And that's kind of like how the picture, I don't know, maybe how the picture is painted in books and movies. But yeah, when I finally started to enter this world, I realized that like there is a endless supply of people that can give you feedback and advice in your business, and essentially everyone to some degree can play a form of a mentor. So being able to identify what a mentor actually is for you is really critical, because there's influencers, we'll call them, people that give you good advice, people
Mm-hmm.
that you can get thoughts and feedback from. But a mentor is normally a little bit more than that. A mentor, the best way that I would describe it, is someone that actually can kind of understand the inner workings of your business, or at the very least understand you. And in that, they can be able to give you a little bit more specific value driven feedback that isn't just oriented around like good business advice, but it's actually more like granular to your own specific situation. So yeah, on one of the things that you'll kind of start to come across, and I recognize this pretty early on, was the difference between free and paid coaching slash mentoring. I'm going to use the word coach a fair amount too, and those are just really think of those as kind of, you can use them both ways, interchangeable. But the way that I see it is that you can find a free mentor. I mean, a lot of you might
Mm-hmm.
have a mentor already pre-existing, and maybe your dad, or maybe your grandfather, or maybe a business friend dad, or something of that sort that you know that's able to and super willing to give you a lot of that free feedback and advice. What I've come to find is that can be, it's harder sometimes to be able to get that in today's day and age, simply just
Mm-hmm.
because we are very much in an environment, in a world where people are very driven by the amount of time that they have, and very limited in that time, especially if your mentor is someone like, say for example, if I was your mentor, it would be very difficult for me to give you just 100% free time all the time, because I've got a 2-year-old daughter running around. I've got a crazy life and business and all these different things that we're doing. Chris could probably attest to that too. He's got even
Mm-hmm.
another full-time career in his fire department. So then you have to ask, okay, well, if I can't find a free one, maybe I can pay for one. And that's where I would say a good amount of this conversation is gonna orient around. How do you find a quality paid mentor slash coach? Because there are a ton of these. I mean, Chris, I guess you and I have both experienced this, but I mean, we have been through tons of different environments of paid coaching and
Mm-hmm.
paid mentorship. And yeah, I mean, I think that it's taken us probably both a while, and it took us time to be able to find people within those circles that really, with time, aligned with what we were actually looking for. So what I want to highlight would really just be a few questions and key points pertaining to actually finding a mentor, especially within the paid sphere. Because again, when it comes to finding a mentor, the likelihood of them just being already pre-existing in your life, and the likelihood of them actually willing to like go out of their way to help you immensely in your business, is not great. And that's not something to be sad and depressed about. It's just honestly the natural reality of this thing. So what I would recommend is a mindset understanding that this is really up to you. if you want a mentor, the most effective way that you're going to actually find that mentor is if you hunt it down yourself. It's a process of you pursuing and qualifying and engaging with that mentor on a regular basis, and like not having to being led by the fear of like, oh, are they wanting to give me my time? Are they interested in speaking with me? But like really showing a desired interest in learning from a person. One, that's a massive compliment to the person, because the person is going to be able to like be, wow, this person actually like really trusts me and wants my feedback, and they're going to actually almost always want to have some degree of willingness to give you some input there. But on top of that, within this paid sphere, it's really important to qualify who you want to work with. I think Chris and I both can attest to, again, working with people that were really good fits, but then also working with people that like weren't necessarily the best fit. And that wasn't entirely a bad thing at all to the coach or the mentors that we hired, but it was just more often than not, there was sometimes just different alignment with values. Sometimes it was inside of the business that we're actually operating, that we were, what would I say, just different kind of business styles, different business motivations. Sometimes, again, that's kind of going back to why it's important for a mentor to understand where you are at. Because if a mentor doesn't understand what you actually want, it's going to be challenging for them to be able to give you great feedback and great advice on how to structure your company. So, Chris, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this too, because obviously you've been in a lot of the same spheres that I have been when it comes to coaching and mentors. I mean, what has been some of the biggest things you've recognized on your end when it comes to finding a mentor, qualifying a mentor, and being able to really get the most out of that mentor relationship?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So my thoughts on this are really similar. One of the things I always think about is, you ever heard the term like, when the student is ready, the master will appear? Like there are times in life where you're going to stumble upon a mentor that's going to help you, that comes out of nowhere and kind of is just a person that's going to step into your life and help you with a specific thing or area or your business or your life. But the reality is that that's just not as common as it used to be. Like, you think about in the trades, especially, like the classic representation of mentor and student in my mind is the journeyman and the apprentice. So you have electricians, plumbers, HVAC techs, and way back when, like, how many business owners do you know that learned their trade just by showing up as a new guy on a job site and working for somebody for 5 years? And then they start their own business because they learned the business from somebody else. Or that classic story of the kid that walks into a cabinet shop to get a job sweeping the floor, and 10 years later they own that shop. But those kind of relationships, those kind of businesses are less common. And especially if you're starting from scratch and you're trying to start a business, change your life, change your outlook, change what you're doing, it's hard to find somebody who is doing what you want to do, has what you want, and is really a quality person or qualified mentor to teach and train and work with you. And that's why it's so important to think about what you want to do, and where you want to be, and pick somebody that is either A, already there and can help you get there, or at the very least is doing what you want to do. So, I mean, you can get really, really niche about it and say, hey, if I want to start a pressure washing company, I should probably find a mentor that knows about pressure washing. Or if I want to be an electrician, I should probably learn electrical work from an electrician. But when it comes to the big picture of business, there's all these options available now where you can join groups, join masterminds, join coaching programs, get one-on-one mentoring, one-on-one coaching. And there's a lot of good options and a lot of really bad options, if I'm being totally honest. And it's not always that people are bad in general. It's just they're not always good for you. They're not always the right fit for you. They don't always align with your values. They don't always align with what you want to do in life. And they don't always align with where you want to be or where you're going. And I think that when it comes down to it, that's the biggest part of this, is you have to take the initiative to find that person or that group or that mentor that is going to help push you in the direction that you want to go.
Yeah, that's really good. And it makes me think too of just like, you've probably heard the phrase like, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I do want to recognize an honest obstacle in this, is that there is a tendency for someone to be on the opposite end of this, where they're like super, super hyper focused on finding the perfect mentor and perpetually disappointed with every mentor that they find because they're just not that perfect alignment.
Yeah.
Be willing and be mindful of that, because again, if you find a mentor It's really helpful to have the open eyes and the clarity of mind and the discernment to be able to tell and take what you
Hmm.
can, but also throw away what just isn't beneficial to you. I think there's this very strong tendency of like immediately if a mentor doesn't align with your values, or if a mentor doesn't align with where you're at or where your mindset is, or maybe where you're trying to take your
Hmm.
business, that immediately all of their advice is invalid.
Yep.
That's not true at all. And I don't want you to feel as if like you can't go down to find a mentor unless they're that perfect fit. Like it's important to try and find one that is, but at the same time, you're to find something perfect can be extremely difficult. So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I mean, be able to separate the two, be able to recognize what's beneficial to you and be able to recognize what's not beneficial to you. And don't feel like super stressed over bad advice. Like see it for what it is. If it doesn't align with what you're trying to do, say, you know what? I'm going to take this, but I'm not going to take this, and steer your own ship, because at the end of the day, that's what this is about. It's not about finding someone to do it all for you or to give you every single piece of advice along the way, but it is really helpful to have a person that says, you know what, I've been down this way before and I see that that was a mistake,
Hmm.
or I've gone this way and I found that this was really beneficial and it seems to align with what you're trying to accomplish here. So let's go ahead and do this. That, in my opinion, is what a most helpful mentor can truly do for you.
Yeah, and I think there's one big key point in what you just said too that's worth touching on before we wrap this up. But that is, even if you find an extremely good mentor and coach, they can't do it for you. And I
Yeah.
think that to wrap this up, like that's one of the last things that I want to make sure we mention is you're going to have to not only take the initiative to find this person, this coach, this mentor, whatever you want to call it, and you're going to have to make sure that that person is who you want, what you want, doing what you want. But even if you find that person, they might be the perfect person. But if you don't take both the initiative to find them, make that relationship, build that relationship, and then implement and act on what they teach you, I've seen a lot of people that have a great opportunity or relationship with somebody, and because they aren't implementing and actually doing what they tell them to do, they feel like they need to find somebody else. But the reality is that no mentor, coach, teacher, instructor in anything can do the work for you. So at some point you're going to have to take the self initiative of saying, "Hey, now that I know what I need to do, I need to actually do it."
Yeah, that's really good. Well, guys, thanks so much for tuning into this one. Again, I hope this is helpful. I don't want finding a mentor to feel like it is the only way that you're going to succeed in business. I also don't want you to feel like not having a mentor is going to completely screw you over and like you can't do it without a mentor. This is something that's one of the more helpful areas in business, just to always be seeking guidance. Like kind of again, what Chris said, when the student is ready, the master shows up, and you can always be a person that's, in my opinion, be a perpetual learner, be someone who's constantly
Hmm.
looking for help, assistance, guidance, so you can make the best version of yourself. But again, thank you guys for listening to the New to the Game podcast today. If you have thoughts, questions, feedback, please share those with us. You can reach out, post a comment on the YouTube video or the Spotify podcast. And then again, follow us on and join our Skool group, New to the Game. That is going to be where we have a much more community oriented environment where you can have not only some peer to peer interaction with people that are in the same place as you, but also be able to be around people who are a few steps, a few years ahead of you, so that you can start to lean into some of those mentor relationships in your life and in your business to truly benefit and serve the future and the vision of your company. But again, thanks guys for listening, and we'll catch y'all next time.